What is going on, everyone? And today I'm going to be ranking all of M. Night Shyamalan's films from the worst to the best. It's been about a week since I've seen Trap, so I've been able to just sit on that one a bit and just think about where it lands in my overall ranking. But before we do get into it, I will say that Wide Awake I didn't include, and same with Praying with Anger. Wide Awake I didn't include because A, I couldn't find it anywhere, and B, I know it was kind of fucked over by Harvey Weinstein and got a little bit messy, and Praying with Anger, again, just couldn't find it anywhere. I don't think it really counts. But let's not yap any longer. Let's get into it, and number 14 is no surprise here whatsoever. It's The Last Airbender. I've got no experience with the anime series at all, but the fact that they tried to condense 3 seasons worth of television into a 90-minute film, it's just stupid. Like, just the thought of that is ridiculous. And I'll be honest, I didn't even stay awake through this film. I fell asleep about halfway through. I've never had the guts to go back and finish it because I just know that it's still going to be down here because everything else was just so bad leading up to the point that I fell asleep. It was just horrendous visual effects, terrible acting. I believe the main kid actually got the role because he was, like, they sent in like a videotape because he kind of looked like the kid from the anime series. So he got the role because of that, which, you know, you can tell. And just a nonsensical storyline and horrendously written dialogue. It's a disaster from back to front. I hated this film. Coming in just above that at number 13 is After Earth. I did manage to stay awake for all of this one, but by God, it was a trial. So this film is one that I know M. Night Shyamalan didn't really have that much to do with. He kind of just did it because Will Smith wanted to make his son a star, so I know that Will Smith allegedly took control of the directing for most of it, and yeah, it doesn't fit well with any other Shyamalan films because it's another one of those films where the visual effects are just dreadful. It's got very heavy-handed messaging, poor dialogue, poor performances, and just a plot that makes zero sense. It's at least watchable, like it's not the kind of thing where you just want to rip your eyeballs out, but it's just a dull nothing of a film. Moving on past those two disasters, we have a film of his that came out rather recently, and it's Knock at the Cabin. This one might be a bit surprising because I know a lot of people actually really enjoyed this one, and I can understand that. There is a really solid concept here. I love the central concept of one of your family members has to die or the world will end. And you're just like, what are these 4 horsemen of the apocalypse? Are they telling the truth? Are they all just crazy? What's going on? Is the world actually ending? Is this stuff that he's showing just a series of coincidences? And you really have to just think in your head about what's going on and make your decision up for yourself. And I like that about it. The first 20 minutes in particular are really solid, and all the performances across the board are fantastic. Everyone sells it. Where the film loses me, though, is it gets into a repetitive wash, rinse, repeat cycle, and it gets really boring, to be honest. After the first 20 minutes, this is mild spoilers for Knock at the Cabin if you haven't seen it. What happens is the 4 horsemen, they'll show a natural disaster, a horrific thing happening on the television, and then they'll say, are you convinced now that it's real? Are you ready to make your choice? Is one of you ready to die to save the world? The couple will say no, and then it'll cut to one of the 4 horsemen being brutally killed themselves. They sacrifice themselves, and then cuts to a flashback of this young couple. And it's just, that happens, and then it happens again, and then it happens again, and then the film comes into its final act. But it just becomes really tedious and boring and predictable. It's just the same series of events with these flashbacks that really don't mean a hell of a lot. There's one flashback that is quite important, actually, that plays a big role. But other than that, it's just a Shyamalan film that the reason it comes in so low is because it's the rare kind of Shyamalan film that is unremarkable. It has nothing stand out about it. It doesn't go for any big swings, which you can almost always count on him to do, is to go out there, whether it works or not. But this film just feels bleh. So while it's technically better than a lot of the films that are going to come above it, it's just the one that's stuck with me the least. Coming in at number 11, we have Old. Now, I watched Old a while back now. Probably when it first came to streaming after it initially released is when I watched it. So I haven't seen it in a while. But I remember having fun with it. And I recently watched the kill count because they did a kill count. I wasn't really in the mood to watch the entire thing again. And I think I still stand by what I originally said. Went back and looked at my original Letterboxd review and I was like, look, this is exceedingly stupid. It's dumb, but it's got some fun moments to it. And it's not this disaster that a lot of people thought it was. I will agree that the dialogue was horrendous and just absolutely terrible. But I had fun with it. And for a PG-13 film, there was some gnarly horror in here. Like some scenes that I will never ever forget. Like, I'm not going to go into spoilers for any of these films, by the way, but Old, it's not particularly good, but it is entertaining. You got a wild cast of characters who just speak like they've just landed on Earth, and some gnarly horror here. So it's a film that, if you can get on board with its stupidity, I reckon you'll have a good time with it. The reason it lands at number 11, though, is just because it's not the kind of thing I would be as interested in going back to. It was kind of a one-and-done, fun enough time experience. But the rest of these films, I could easily see myself watching again in the future. So yeah, that's just where it lands. It lands at number 11 just because that's just where it lands. I prefer the other 10. Coming in at number 10 is Glass. This is a film that I would say is one of the most uneven films that I've ever seen. The first 20 minutes to this thing had me so hooked. I was just ready. And then the middle hour, I was thinking that this has just changed completely. We've changed location. It's just a tedious psychological thriller. But it was also building up to a really amazing climax. I was like, this could really save it and turn it into something special. But then it completely subverts expectations and goes for one wild swing at the end that is insane. The problem with that wild swing is that it ends up being really underwhelming. So I started off loving it, was kind of not enjoying it, then I was prepared to really enjoy it, and then I was just so dumbfounded by the twist at the end that I was like, what? So Glass is a film that I admire more than I enjoy. I respect the way it deconstructs the superhero subgenre and completely subverts your expectations. With that being said, the way it subverts your expectations really hinders the film for me. And you can have a look at my twists, M. Night Shyamalan twists tier list. I'll put a card up here if I remember, so you can hear my more in-depth thoughts about why it doesn't work for me. But Glass is a bold film, and I would be interested to rewatch it and see whether I do appreciate it more on rewatch. But it's a film that I do very much appreciate. It's just, again, kind of not one that I've had as much interest in going back to. Coming in at number 9 is Lady in the Water. Now, this is a film that I can't disagree when I see someone put it at the bottom of their list, because I totally get it. And the audacity and the goal of M. Night to write a film where there is a character who is a writer, and his writing is so unbelievably perfect and so brilliant that it is literally going to save the world, and then casting himself in that role in a film where he has written a story about a fairy tale mermaid lady that miraculously appears in a pool of an apartment complex, and the people at the apartment complex are characters in this fairy tale story and have to stop her getting taken away by an evil grass dog so that she can get taken away by a big bird and flown back to Never Never Land. I really like this movie. That is insane what he has done. That is nuts that he's cast himself in that role. I get it if you're thinking this is a bunch of self-indulgent bullshit, but I find it hilarious. And look, M. Night seems like a pretty nice guy, so I'm not going to hold this against him at all. But this film has balls. This film is crazy. And beyond that, Paul Giamatti's performance is legitimately fantastic. He does a really, really good job in this film. I've always been a big fan of his. And the actual kind of visuals of some of the creatures that you see in this film are unique. Whether they've aged well or not is, debatable, but it's a unique film. It's not the kind of film you're going to forget. And for me, at least, I was certainly never bored. So I like Lady in the Water, as much as I can agree that it's got its problems, and the way it goes into, reading off of the back of cereal boxes and stupid shit. It's just I get it. It's stupid, but it's a wild swing. It's a film that I do very much enjoy. But I can totally acknowledge its flaws, so that's why it only comes in at number 9. Coming in at number 8 is The Visit. This was kind of seen as Shyamalan's return to form, return to horror, I guess, after the debacle of a run that he had with Last Airbender and After Earth. And this is an interesting one. I really enjoy the horror side of it. I really think it is quite effective. The comedy stuff doesn't really work for me. So that's why it's held down a bit. There are some parts where it's just I just wanted to punch the TV screen because it was annoying me so much, especially with that fucking kid rapping. Remind me to never have kids. But the actual characters, the horror side, the sense of unease, the kind of more unique found footage way that it is. It normally have a found footage film where it's, taking place in some kind of, out in the woods or something like that, or in an apocalypse or a disaster or something, just kind of a not normal situation. But this is just kids filming themselves going to their grandparents' house and realizing that there is something very wrong. And when it wants to get creepy, it does. And I like it. I like the twist. I like the performances from everyone. As I said, the comedy doesn't really work, and some of the horror goes a little bit overboard. Sometimes the lines between horror and comedy just get mixed up, like the Yahtzee scene. It's just you didn't have to do that. But I like The Visit. I think it's an effective film. Coming in at number 7, and this is where you might click off my video if you haven't yet already after I put Lady in the Water at number 9. Number 7 is The Happening. Now, this is a terrible, terrible, terrible film. I love it to death. I've got it on Blu-ray. I find it very entertaining. I think the gore is so unbelievably over the top. It's just funny. You have a woman in this diner going, "Oh my God, look at this." And she just shows a video to John Leguizamo or Mark Wahlberg, one of the two. It's just a video of a guy fucking just letting himself be eaten by lions. And it's just it's so over the top and gory. The performances are so bad. The reveal of what is actually happening will never not be ingrained in pop culture. It's just a film that's such a disaster on every single level that it works. It works. As a comedy, it's so funny. It's never boring. It's never smart. It never has a good line of dialogue. It never has a good idea. It's just ludicrous, bonkers insanity. Like Mark Wahlberg trying to convince this random family that he's normal, and then he just starts singing some song, and he goes, "See? I'm normal!" Oh my God. The Happening is a riot, and I love it, so it comes in at number 7. Coming in at number 6 is The Newbie, Trap. And I was initially going to have this below The Visit and, heaven forbid, maybe below The Happening, but the more I sit with it, the more I really, really enjoyed this film. I can, again, it's just like almost every other film on this list. I can acknowledge why some people might not like it. I really enjoyed it. It worked for me. It didn't all work for me, but the vast majority of it did. Josh Hartnett is fantastic in this leading role. He's really, really good, and towards the end, he gets really, really unsettling. The plot is stupid enough that you can just switch your brain off and have fun, either just watching it as a stupid thriller, or you can just laugh at it and poke a bunch of holes in it. So it works like that, but I think that it was intended to be with the tongue-in-cheek kind of style. There's a lot of fun, thrilling sequences in here. It's silly, it's stupid, it makes no sense. I would happily watch it again. And the difference between a film like this and The Happening is that it's well aware that it's stupid and makes no sense. It's playing into that. It's a very funny film. I really like Trap. I'm excited to watch it again. Coming in at number 5 is what everyone seemed to declare his best movie since Signs, and that is Split. Coming out in 2016, and it contains one wild James McAvoy performance. And the film is just worth watching alone for that. It is crazy. I reckon he plays a man with multiple personalities, split personalities. I reckon he plays like 8 or 9 different characters. And it's insane. And not only that, but it's a really, really good bottle thriller. It's sort of like Knock on the Cabin in a way. Like, he's kind of like, the beast is coming. And you're like, what the fuck's the beast? Is this guy crazy? Is the beast actually real? Is he actually coming? And they have to figure out a way out of this situation. It's a very confined film. But it's really, really effective. It's really, really solid. It's got a great lead performance. The girl characters are kind of disposable. But I really enjoyed Split. I really like it. Number 4, we have The Village. I know that a lot of people don't like this film. I was mixed on it when I first saw it, but as I rewatched it and just over time, I've grown to love it more and more and more, to the point that it is easily in my... This fucking bird just flew into the window. What was I saying? Yeah, The Village. I really, really like this film. I've grown to love it. I've always enjoyed it, but the more I think about it, the more I appreciate it. I don't want to go into spoilers, but it's a really great horror-romance hybrid with some legitimately tense and creepy sequences and a massive, massive swing at the end that, again, I'm sounding like a broken record. I get it if it doesn't work for you. It works for me. I love The Village. It's immaculately shot by Roger Deakins. I think it's just a terrific film that is... I'm not going to say people don't get it, but I'm going to say that it is misunderstood, or at least you can maybe not misunderstood, but misread. I think it's a film that if you know what it's trying to do and understand it for that, rather than go into it expecting a full-on horror film, I think you'll like it a lot more. But I feel like wrong expectations is the main problem with this film. But The Village is fantastic. I really love it. And now the top 3. It's no surprise that the top 3 are his first 3 films. But coming in at number 3 for me is Signs. Signs is another film, like The Village, where the more I rewatch it, the more I like it over time. I love Signs. I think it's brilliant. I really, really love all of the performances here. They're all really good, especially Mel Gibson. He does a great job at just this broken character who's very grounded but also very lost. He feels like a real person. I think M. Night actually does a really good job in this film. He's one of the better parts, like one of his better cameo roles. And just as a horror story, putting aside the thematic depth with the religion and the loss and the grieving and the moving on, as a horror film, it is effective. You barely see a peep of anything for the first hour or so of the film, and then like an hour in, you get that scene where I won't spoil exactly what happens, but it's Joaquin Phoenix watching a TV. And watching that scene alone, I've found, is a lot less effective, but within the context of the film, you've been waiting for an hour just to see a glimpse of what might be happening, and then it just happens. It is one of the most brilliant horror scenes, one of the most brilliant jump scares, one of the best reveals ever. It's genius filmmaking. And again, no spoilers. Watch my twist endings video if you want to hear my in-depth thoughts about it. But I really like the ending. I think the twist is fantastic. It works perfectly for me. It's just a wonderful film. Coming in at number 2. This is where shit gets messy. Because I'm putting The Sixth Sense in my number 2 spot. Don't get me wrong. I love this film to bits. Easily one of my favourite films ever. It's perfectly acted. It's perfectly paced. The scares are all there. The emotion and character work is so human, which is so bizarre when you watch films like Trap and Old. It's just like, has M. Night ever actually spoken to another human being? But obviously he has, because what he does in The Sixth Sense is just masterful. And again, no spoilers. Check this film out if you haven't. But the way it wraps up, the way the bow is just tied, It is chef's kiss level brilliant. This is easily one of the best films ever made. It feels weird not putting it at number one, but that's just because the number one film is one of those films where I cannot pick a single flaw. Speaking of which, number one, Unbreakable. With The Sixth Sense, you can spot some slight logic gaps here and there, I guess. You know, it's just like if you look really hard, there are a couple of things that don't perfectly line up. Unbreakable doesn't have that. Unbreakable is the kind of film that I've stewed on and thought about and thinking, is there actually anything? Is there a single line of dialogue? Is there a single shot? Is there a single plot point that feels a little bit out of place or not quite as good as the rest of the film? And I think no. I think that this film is a perfect film. I don't know how else to say it, but it's just perfect. The acting is so good. Bruce Willis, again, kills it. A different character, but he really kills it. His family is great. Samuel L. Jackson as Elijah Price is so good, playing such an offbeat character for him. You completely forget that it's Samuel L. Jackson. Like, he's one of those guys where he pops up in a movie, especially like with Tarantino, you're expecting funny one-liners and stuff. No, he disappears into this role. And the actual concept of it, which again, I don't want to spoil just because it's kind of more comes into view at the ending, is masterful. But the kind of themes of comic books and superheroes going through the film, I love it. It's such a subversive take on what you would initially expect from a film like this. It goes places. The musical score, my God, the score for this film is just breathtaking. There are some parts when it just kicks into gear and you've got Bruce Willis wearing his raincoat, and it's just like, my God, this is the definition of perfect filmmaking. So that is all for today. Let me know your ranking of all of M. Night Shyamalan films in the comments. And I don't exactly know what my next video is going to be, but keep an eye out. I'm sure something will come out soon. Alien Romulus, maybe. Anyway, I'll see you all then. Bye.